Hello and welcome. You're watching Newsx. I am Rishabh Gulati. In 2024, we launched something called the Bharat Progress Report, the BPR. Another year has elapsed, and as 2025 has wound down and 2026 has begun, here is the Bharat Progress Report for 2025. So many things happen in a year that take us in the direction towards Viksit Bharat 2047, step by step by step. Here's an opportunity for us to recap all of them that have been achieved in the last calendar year so that you have a compendium, a ready reckoner, a 101-point milestone brief, a listicle done with you so that you are aware of what all this country managed to achieve in this year. It's something not only for us to digest, but it's something we should share with everybody we know all over the world so they know the story of India's milestones. We've broken it across 10 categories, 101 points. Let's start with category number 1, the economy. The first and most important milestone, India became the world's 4th largest GDP, overtaking Japan in 2025, a major achievement which is now to be panned through GDP rankings all across the world. The second big economic impact, perhaps also an impact of the GST reforms, the highest GST collections were recorded in 2025, peaking in April with 2.37 lakh crores in a single month of revenue through GST. When it comes to the third major point of the economic achievements, the AUM, assets under management of the mutual fund industry, which is people like you and me who invest in mutual funds, this crossed 80 lakh crore rupees in November. 80 lakh crore rupees invested into our markets through mutual funds, monies that we have put into the growth of India. Point number 4. India's all-time foreign direct investment that grows into infrastructure, manufacturing, building into India, FDI, all-time inflows, which means from point of where they started to point where they've reached now, a cumulative milestone of $1.15 trillion was hit in 2025. Point number 5, exports. Annual exports crossed the $850 billion mark, which means that our exporters selling things abroad have earned $850 billion for the country in 2025. Point number 6, digital rupee. How many of us even know about it? Where the digital rupee announced and launched by the RBI, its circulation has risen to 10.16 billion rupees as of 2025 and expanding rapidly. Point number 7, inflation. Retail inflation, which is what affects you and I the most, it has gone down to an 8-year low of 1.54% as of September 2025. High GDP growth, world's 4th largest economy, GDP growing at about 8%, well, inflation at 1.5%. Point number 8, food, wheat procurement. Look at that figure on your screens, 29.7 million tons, record food procurement has happened in this country in 2025 with just the staple, which is wheat. And it doesn't stop there. We've been talking for decades, not enough people paying income tax, not enough broad base of income tax happening. Well, have a look at this. A record 7.3 crore income tax returns were filed in this year, 2025. 7.3 crore people filed their direct income tax returns. Big ticket item. Number 10. India marked the lowest unemployment rate amongst the top 20, what we call the G20 nations in the world. Not a mean feat with high GDP growth, low inflation, and low unemployment as compared to the top 20 economies of the world. That, ladies and gentlemen, was the first category. You're watching the Bharat Progress Report 2025, where we create a ready reckoner, a compendium, 101 milestone listicle for you on what India achieved in 2025. Category number 2, going on and picking up from points number 11 onwards, is in industry. And the first milestone, 38th out of 133 in the Global Innovation Index that tracks R&D, research and frontline innovation happening in the world. India's ranking has improved long leaps in the past several years, now at 38th. Keep an eye out for this ranking improving in 2026. Point number 11, in our 101 listicle, something we can all recognize, the Apple iPhone. Did you know that $22 billion worth of iPhones were manufactured and assembled in India and exported to other parts of the world, including the United States of America? Make that one of your takeaways. Point number 13, indigenous defense production in India reached a record 1.5 lakh crore value. We have been importing two major things from around the world. One is energy, which is oil and gas, and the other is defense equipment. Well, we are manufacturing our own at record rates, 1.5 lakh crores done in this calendar year. Point number 14, India announced the making of a 5th generation fighter jet engine with the French firm Safran. We who can put robos on the moon have a Gaganyaan mission planned, have never been able to manufacture a jet engine. Well, we are about to start in collaboration with the French. That milestone agreement was signed in 2025. Here's another key takeaway from a major global tech giant, Microsoft. Microsoft announced its largest investment in Asia to advance India's cloud and AI infrastructure. Largest ever is going to happen in India. Largest investment of Microsoft in Asia happening in India, announced in 2025. Point number 16, startups. Well, the startups that began in this country in this calendar year created 21 lakh, 2.1 million direct jobs. That's for a burgeoning middle class. Well, 21 lakh new job opportunities were created by the Startup India program, the startup sector. Point number 17, and this affects every one of us. The average monthly data consumption is now 24 GB. Think about it. We are almost using 1 GB per day per person. So we are in a position where nearly a billion gigabytes of data is being consumed every day in this country. Big takeaway, a milestone achievement that indicates our growth as things are changing in not only the high-tech sector, but in everyday sectors. Point 18, India's logistic costs. Now, I've given you the simpler points which we can all relate to. Businessmen will know how important this is. The cost of producing a good versus the cost of having it in your house. In between comes the logistics cost that adds to the value, or in your case, the expense of the good. Well, it has dropped to 7.9% of GDP. Now, we'll have a longer conversation on what that actually means in translation to you, but I can tell you in the form of this listicle, this is a milestone achievement, and the concept of Gati Shakti, everybody coordinating better across departments and government, has been one of the key drivers of this, the Gati Shakti program. Point number 19, India became the world's 3rd largest automobile market in 2025. More Indians than ever before are buying cars. Shows you what economic transition from a developing to middle income to developed economy looks like. Well, we are in the middle of this with another milestone achieved. And point number 20, Amazon, another major global giant, pledged $35 billion of investment in India by 2030 to expand operations. That's Jeff Bezos investing money into the Indian economy and the future prospects of their country. That was industry. Now, as we are in the middle of this Newsx Bharat Progress Report 2025, tracking the 101 milestones achieved by India in this calendar year across 10 categories, a listicle, a ready reckoner, a compendium for you out there. Let's pick up category number 3, people's welfare. Now, ladies and gentlemen, the biggest takeaway on this was the GST reform. The slabs changing to 0, 5, 18 and 40% will the mass majority of things, staples, things that you and buy every day, to all the way to automobiles, becoming significantly cheaper in the latter half of this year, September onwards 2025. You all remember it well. It happened this year for historic generations to recall. Now have a look at point number 22 in our 101 listicle, street vendors, Rediwalas. A few years ago, this PM Swanidhi scheme was launched so that they could get easy loans. Well, believe it or not, your Rediwalas, the street vendors, received loans of more than 15,000 crore rupees under this PM Swanidhi scheme. Those are lives being transformed with small entrepreneurs who literally start off from a hand cart. 15,000 crores of loans disbursed to them. Point number 23, basic amenities, tap water, so that you don't have to take a ghada to a well or to a nearby river and walk dozens of kilometers in a day to have water tapped to your home. 81.42% Indian rural households have now water coming through a pipe and a nalka in their houses. Target, of course, is 100% saturation, but this was what was achieved in 2025. Now, there is something called the Ayushman Ve Vandana health insurance. This is particularly for the elderly above the age of 70. Well, 8.6 million of these cards were issued to the roughly 6 crore people who qualify in that age in this country. 8.6 million of them who otherwise could not get private health insurance because of their age. Well, they now have health insurance thanks to this scheme. That's an important milestone in people's welfare. Point number 25. Now have a look at this. Just under 31 crores, 30.98 crore unorganized workers have now registered themselves by 2025 on something called the eShram portal. Now the eShram portal is something that if you are a gig worker or a manual laborer, you can go register yourself and seek not only benefits that accrue to you, access to schemes that accrue to you, but also create a pool from which employers can come and make job offers. Well, have a look at that. 31 crore, that's 310 million people have registered on this portal in the digitization of India's governance. Point number 26. 125 days, 125 days of wage employment per rural household has now been committed under the new scheme, which you now know is called the VB G Ramji scheme. Now this is ensuring that not only now you get 125 instead of 100, which means a 25% improvement in the number of paid days that you get as a worker, but also that these schemes are not just about digging holes, but they're actually producing rural infrastructure for the village that you live in. Major milestone of 2025 in people's welfare. Well, here's one that has been progressively going through leaps and bounds since it was originated a decade ago. PM Jan Dhan. Ladies and gentlemen, 55 crore accounts have now been created in PM Jan Dhan. So that milestone was crossed in 2025 with 2.68 lakh crores of monies in those accounts. These are people who did not have bank accounts. 55 crore of them now do, so they have access to banking services, and they have 2.68 lakh crores cumulative banking deposits for people who had no access to formal financial institutions. That milestone was crossed in 2025. Point number 28, something which idea was so simple that if you're a ration card holder in one particular state, but you are working in a different particular state and you can't get ration, well, One India, One Ration card was begun, and in 2025 it was implemented in all 36 states and union territories, which means any resident of India from one state can claim ration in another state. Major milestone achievement of 2025. Point number 29. And this is an index that tells you that the cost of preparing a meal, vegetarian and non-vegetarian, a thali meal like we call it, has gone down by 13%. So food procurement is at record highs, logistics costs are at record lows, retail inflation is at record lows, well, at least lows in the past several decades, and that has an impact on the most basic thing, the food that people eat or you can eat that sustains your life. Point number 30 on your screens. 25 lakh people were trained under something called the PMKVY 4.0, and this scheme, which is a skill development scheme, has expanded into AI, robotics, Internet of Things, major milestone achievements that are taking place. As a quick reminder, you're watching Newsx's Bharat Progress Report 2025, where we are going through a listicle of 101 milestone achievements across 10 categories so that you have a compendium, a brief, a ready reckoner of what all was achieved by Bharat in this calendar year. Category number 4 is infrastructure, and point number 31 in our list of 101, well, you all heard about this, the world's highest railway arc bridge, the Chenab Rail Bridge, was inaugurated in 2025. Have a look at that. An amazing achievement that has opened many more things than just a bridge, but opened access and ease of transportation, logistics, and people movement to the remotest parts of the north of India and Jammu and Kashmir. Point number 32 in our list, the operational Vande Bharat Express trains. Well, 164 of them are now operating as of the end of 2025 in India. Not just the main metros, all over the country, 164 different trains on different routes are operating. Now here's point number 33. The number of people who have access to a mobile phone, the telecom subscriber base it is called, is now 1.2 billion, which means almost every Indian has either a smartphone or a feature phone in their hands. That figure was crossed in 2025. Point number 34, the 5G, the latest technology, mobile subscribers in India, just under 400 million. So of the 1.2 billion who have mobile phones, almost a third have 5G connectivity, which is a different leap in terms of data speed and access. Point number 35. We've talked about infrastructure in total, but this one major project, the Delhi-Mumbai Expressway, 756 kilometers of this expressway is now fully operational. Point A to point B, and in between some connections are due, but almost 1,000 kilometers, mostly greenfield projects, ready for use, major milestone of 2025. Point number 36, 29 kilometers of new road was built in India every single day. Every day, 29 kilometers of new roads were built. Shows you the path of infrastructural progress in the country. That happened in 2025. Point number 37, rail electrification so that they don't need to use diesel locomotives. Well, in the broad gauge network, 99.2%. So nearly 100% of India's broad gauge trains are now electrified. Major achievement, has an impact on train logistics, it has an impact on pollution, it has an impact on India's oil and gas imports. Well, 100% nearly has been achieved, 99.2% in 2025. Point number 38. And this, ladies and gentlemen, is India's largest greenfield airport. It's happened, the inauguration very recently at Navi Mumbai. Well, the NMIA was inaugurated in 2025 for the sake of prosperity. The National Broadband Mission 2.0, ladies and gentlemen, was launched, and this is to extend high-speed broadband to remote areas. So the Broadband Mission 1.0, the original, was so that you get broadband. Now we are talking about speeds exceeding 100, 200 Mbps in rural areas. That's the launch happened in 2025. And point number 40, India's first deep water container transshipment port, Vizinjam, there you have it, was launched in 2025. Another milestone achievement. As we hit point number 41, India became the 5th country in the world to not only develop an indigenous 4G stack, make it upgradable to 6G, but also put in place what we need to develop to upgradable to 5G, but put in place what we need to develop 6G as well. It's happening within India from start to finish, which is what the stack is called, the development happening in India. Trust me, if you understand communication technology, major deal was achieved in 2025. And speaking of this major deal, when you and I have a mobile phone connection and we're looking at average speed, well, point number 42 on your screen will tell you that the mobile broadband speeds average, the median speed is now 130 Mbps. That means on an average, if you are in India, regardless of where you are, on an average, some will be higher, some will be lower, but on an average, most Indians are getting 130 Mbps connection on their mobile phones with the various stacks that have been developed and of course the 5G rollout that has happened. Major milestone achievement. Point number 43 on your screens. 5G services, as I mentioned, with 400 million subscribers, 99% of districts in all states and union territories are now covered by 5G, which means if you want, you can upgrade your phone and get a 5G network and then make access to the 130 Mbps average median speeds by getting to this network. Major achievement. India has been one of the fastest adopting countries of 5G in the world. Point number 44 on your screens. Railway infrastructure. More than 8,000 railway bridges were either fixed, rebuilt or strengthened in 2025, which means they are safer, the trains can travel faster and there can be better connectivity. Now, this is an infrastructural achievement that we don't see a direct impact, but trust me, it's a massive number that the Railway Ministry has managed to knock off in 2025. And speaking of major achievements, India's Border Roads Organization, it dedicated, which means inaugurated, 125 projects, some of the most challenging ones in the world, worth more than 5,000 crore rupees were completed by the BRO in 2025. Point number 46, India's national highways network has now crossed 1,46,342 kilometers. Ladies and gentlemen, 1.5 lakh kilometers are now covered by India's national highway, increasing at a breakneck speed, upgrading like a never before speed. And this is something you can experience yourself regardless of where you're living in the country. Point number 47 will come in our next category, the green economy. As we go through this compendium of 101 points through the Newsx Bharat Progress Report 2025, point number 47 is focusing on the green economy, on sustainability. Well, India's non-fossil fuel based power, which means not using coal, oil and gas, has hit a record. Yes, have a look at that figure on your screens. A record 259 gigawatts. 1,000 megawatts makes a gigawatt. Record. And this has a direct bearing on point number 48. Because point number 48 will tell you that 50% of our power generation is now happening through non-fossil, solar, nuclear, but mostly solar. Little bit of wind, but mostly solar. Of the top 5 massive gargantuan solar project parks in the world, 2 are in India. Top 5 in the world, 2 are in India. One is in Gujarat, one is in the south. 50% of our power is now non-fossil fuel generated, and this has happened 5 years. The target was we'll do it by 2030. We've done it by 2025. And point number 49 then tells you that electric vehicles in sales went up by 15.68% to 2.2 million electric vehicles sold in 2025, increasing at a very, very rapid exponential rate. Power from cleaner sources, cars running on cleaner power. Fingers crossed we can keep this momentum going. And that brings us, ladies and gentlemen, to point number 50. Have a look at this figure. It's mind-boggling. 53.5 lakh crore households, homes registered for this rooftop solar plan that can be put solar panels on our roof. And nearly 40%, 24.3 lakh homes installed rooftop solar. That milestone hit in 2025. Almost 25 lakh homes in India, in addition, have now received rooftop solar, giving you an idea of a green revolution. And point number 51 is a breakup of that solar power capacity. 132.8 gigawatts of solar power is now operational in India. Again, 1,000 megawatts goes into a gigawatt, and 1 megawatt is worth hundreds of homes. Okay, an average home is using maybe 11 kilowatts. Okay, think about it. So 25% nearly of India's power generation capacity, solar. Major milestone in the green economy. Now this has a bearing also on food production. Have a look at this figure. It's a record high, all-time high. India is producing food like never before, not only to feed its own people, but the entire world. The figure on your screen, ladies and gentlemen, tells you that 357.73 million tons, an all-time high of food grain production happened in India in 2025. Point number 53 on your screens breaks this down for you, because our rice production hit another record of 150.18 million tons in 2025. And this brings us as a direct bearing on our ability to produce non-fossil fuel power, energy. Ethanol blending, 20% target was achieved in 2025. Now our cars and vehicles and everything has to catch up. But think about it, this one fact has reduced the burdens from vehicles to our oil and gas imports by 20%. It has generated opportunities for farmers to turn wasteland into profits. 20% ethanol blending achieved in 2025. Now here's an anecdotal point, number 55 on your screen. The repopulation of cheetahs. Well, 5 have been born in India after a long time of nearly being extinct in this subcontinent. So happy news in the repopulation of native species into India's flora and fauna. Point number 56 on your screens. It's an interesting one which I've included in this list, because the central government, as it's upgrading and cleaning up shop, generated 800 crore rupees as revenue into the Consolidated Fund of India, into India's exchequer, from selling scrap material. It's an interesting anecdotal one that tells you a larger story of upgrade and removal of kachra, okay, happening at a great rate never seen before. Now as you're watching this most comprehensive listicle, which we call the Bharat Progress Report on Newsx, 101 milestones to a new India, we are now in category number 6 of this Ready Reckoner compendium, which you should know and should pass on to everybody in the world of what India has been up to in the calendar year 2025. High tech, point number 57 on our list. India's total smartphone exports, which is the phones that are made and assembled in India, went up by a staggering 43% to a total value of $18.7 billion, which means India exported $18.7 billion worth of these smartphones to everywhere in the world, including the United States of America and Europe. Point number 58, the Indian Space Research Organization. Now, ladies and gentlemen, this LM-3 rocket which recently happened at the end of 2025, put an American satellite, the Bluebird Block 2, into orbit. So, an American satellite bought the launching rights from the Indian Space Research Organization to launch this satellite. Milestone achievements in the commercialization of India's space program in the terms of revenue generation in 2025. Big ticket item. Point number 59 on your screens also relates to ISRO. Space docking, a major milestone required for the Gaganyaan mission. Well, successfully conducted its first ever space docking experiment. So, well done to ISRO. And that takes us to point number 60, where India commissioned its latest multi-role stealth frigates. They are called the INS Udaygiri and the INS Himgiri. So, the Indian Navy also getting a boost in 2025. And that takes us to point number 61, that relates to the National Quantum Mission, which is now rolling out at a total approved budget of 6,000 crore rupees. That's nearly $1 billion, ladies and gentlemen, is being invested to develop quantum computing and allied technologies, lasers and other things in India. Massive investment going on to the front line of R&D and science. Point number 62 takes us back to the Indian Space Research Organization, because ISRO marked its 100th rocket launch with that, the GSLV F-15. 100th successful launch of the Indian Space Research Organization took place in 2025. And that takes us to point number 63. The Airavat AIRAWAT, which is an AI supercomputer. So, India has this supercomputer. It has now broken into the top 50 global rankings. Of the top 50 most powerful supercomputers in the world, finally, there is an Indian supercomputer that qualifies. Some ways to go in our supercomputing capacity, but you can clearly see now we are getting there as well. Point number 64 comes back to ISRO, something to be proud of. Well, ISRO handed over its first indigenous 32-bit space grade microprocessors. There is a special category of microprocessors which are being made in India that are developed for the extremes of space, where there is a lot of radiation, there is a lot of extreme temperatures, cold and hot. Well, these 32-bit space grade microprocessors are being made, designed right here in India by ISRO. Point number 65 on your screens. India delivered the second batch of BrahMos missiles to the Philippines. BrahMos, jointly developed by India and Russia, made here in India, providing security for the defense of the Philippines and earning defense foreign exchange in a high-tech cruise missile format for India. Point number 66 on your screens. Coming back to ISRO and its successful completion of a re-entry test. So far, we have been launching rockets. If you want to have a manned mission, it has to be able to bring people back down to Earth. So, you require a re-entry test successfully completed for Gaganyaan by ISRO in 2025. Now, you are watching this marathon listicle of 101 milestone achievements of India. We call it the Bharat Progress Report on Newsx. I am Rishabh Gulati. We are moving on to category number 7, governance and culture, point number 67. And ladies and gentlemen, of these 101 milestone achievements, how can we not include the successful organization of the world's largest gathering of humanity ever? 660 million people. I repeat, 660 billion people. That is about 9% of the world's population attended this event, the Mahakumbh Mela in Prayagraj in 2025. Point number 68, right to housing. Do I as a human being have the right to have a roof over my head? Well, it has been declared a fundamental right by the Supreme Court of India in 2025. Point number 69, 150 years of our national song Vande Mataram was celebrated in India in 2025. Point number 70, the Ram temple construction was completed, finished from start to Bhumi Pujan, to inauguration, to completion. Inauguration happened a year ago, 18 months later, completion, and that's a photograph of the completion ceremony in Ayodhya. Point number 71 on your screens. The first archaeological experiential museum was inaugurated in Vadnagar. If you want to have an understanding of the civilizational history of India, where do you go? Well, check out this place. It's now on the map. It has brought Vadnagar onto the map. Archaeological Experiential Museum. If you've never heard of it, well, you've heard about it now. A must trip for every Indian to experience what it felt like, what the Indus Valley civilization felt like, how they lived in Vadnagar. Point number 72 on your screens. This is something called the Shanti Act. It was passed, which now for the first time allows private sector participation in India's nuclear sector, which means you can open the door for small modular nuclear reactors, for data centers and so many other ancillary technologies. That's a major reform that has happened in India in 2025. Point number 73 on your screens. 100% transition to the Bharatiya Nyaya Sanhita, which has replaced the Indian Penal Code, which was built by the British. Well, all the courts have now migrated to this Nyaya Sanhita mechanism, operational scheme in 2025. Completed. Point number 74, the Bhashini AI platform. And if you haven't heard of it, check this out. The 22 scheduled languages of India, you can use this platform, immediate translation back and forth, voice and text, using the Bhashini AI platform, indigenously developed in India. Big achievement. Point number 75 on your screens. When it comes to the Maratha forts, you can see a photograph of one of them on your screens. They are called the Maratha military landscapes. They dot the west coast of India. They became India's 44th UNESCO World Heritage Site. So they achieved World Heritage status, the Maratha military landscapes. Point number 76 on your screens, the Bastar Olympics. 3.9 lakh people participated in the Bastar Olympics. Many of them hailing from areas which have had major security problems for decades. Red Corridor, Naxal affected districts. Well, in the heart of Bastar, 3.9 lakh people came to play sports, compete in athletics, major milestone of 2025. Now, ladies and gentlemen, as we are going through these 101 milestones, what we call the Bharat Progress Report 2025 here on Newsx, what was the compendium of milestone achievements? Let us pick up point number 77 out of 101. This is the PM Vishwakarma scheme. This registered, ladies and gentlemen, in governance and culture, 30 lakh beneficiary artisans, 5 years ahead of their schedule. Now, all these beneficiary artisans which produce can sell to you and me as Indians and sell all over the world handicrafts that are produced in India, which are becoming the latest rage because people want to go back to basics. Well, have a look. This is supporting those small and local handicraft manufacturers all over the country. 30 lakh of these artisans have now registered with this scheme, and the scheme has achieved this 5 years ahead of schedule. Our next category is category number 8, foreign policy, and an impact on foreign policy as we look at point number 78. This happened immediately after Operation Sindoor. Most of you will remember it. 59 members of parliament visited 32 different countries all over the world, all continents. Members of parliament from across political lines to discuss India's position on Pakistani sponsored terrorism post Operation Sindoor. Major achievement. I think the first time it's ever been done in India's foreign policy. Now, if we look at point number 79 on your screens, India and the UK have inked an FTA that gives 99% of Indian exports duty-free access to the United Kingdom. This has been in the works for decades. That FTA signed in 2025. And that's not the only one, because point number 80 will tell you that we have launched the Mahasagar Doctrine for the Global South, which is aligning the naval sea interests of a lot of countries in East Asia, in Africa, under this umbrella of the Mahasagar coordination mechanism, which has been inaugurated in India in 2025 for countries covering the Global South. Point number 81 on your screens: rare earths, and this is crucial for frontline technology, and it's a crucial aspect of industrial and foreign policy diplomacy. Those rare earth magnets which are important to Indian industry, well, those exports from China, imports into India have increased in 2025. Now, I am mentioning this as a point here because it has a major impact on high-tech industries. And next, point number 82 on your screens: direct air connectivity between India and China, which has an immediate bearing. So many people who travel for business has resumed after 5 years. And this is a direct impact of the various meetings that have happened at the Prime Ministerial and the Foreign Minister level. Point number 83, and this has happened literally in the end of 2025, another de facto FTA between India and Oman. Zero duty access for a vast majority of Indian exports to Oman under this. And this has an immediate bearing on point number 84, where India and Russia signed a $2 billion lease for nuclear power attack submarines. So that's telling you of a milestone that was achieved between Prime Minister Modi and Vladimir Putin, the Russian president, during his trip that happened in the end of 2025. Point number 85 on your screens: India hosted the first Africa-India maritime engagement naval exercise. We spoke of the Mahasagar scheme that was launched, a direct impact that we're not just thinking about Australia and the Quad and the Americans and doing naval exercise with them. We are thinking of working with all navies in the Global South, especially those in Africa, and coordinate with them in the protection of the seas and future defense of the region. And we've been talking about FTAs. Well, here's point number 86. Iceland, Liechtenstein, Norway, Switzerland, all these FTAs came into effect in 2025. So it's telling you the smorgasbord of countries with which India is now not only signing FTAs but are coming into effect. Point number 87 on your screens: India launched the 25,000 crore export promotion mission. If you are an entrepreneur, a small business owner, and you are making products that can be sold abroad, well, there are 25,000 crores of PLI and other incentives that are being now given to people wanting to manufacture for the world. That export promotion mission hit that 25,000 crore target in 2025. Now, here is the President of India, Draupadi Murmu. She became the first Indian head of state to visit Angola and Botswana. Now, these are milestone achievements because these are nations where almost no Indian government has bothered to have high-level interactions with, which not only improve our south-to-south connections, but India's relationship with the world. Very glad to have seen this happening. Now, ladies and gentlemen, we are in the middle of something called the Bharat Progress Report here on Newsx. I am Rishabh Gulati, and we are traversing 101 milestone achievements in a rapid-fire, ready listicle for you so that you get a compendium of what India achieved in 2025. We are on category 9, sports, and here is number 89. India won the ICC Women's Cricket World Cup. Most of you would have heard about this now. Most of you are super proud about this now. A lot of these exceptional players on your screen are now becoming household names, and they have earned it a milestone achievement for the sporting history of India. And it didn't end there, because point number 90 on your screens, India also won the first Women's T20 World Cup for the blind. Milestone sporting achievement was achieved this year. And speaking of milestone sporting achievements, point number 91 of 101, para-athlete Sumit Antil won his third consecutive World Championship gold. Well done, Sumit. We are all proud of you. Point number 92, India's men's and women's teams won the Kho-Kho World Cup. For if you've not heard about this, you should have heard about this. Traditional Indian sport which is being promoted in India, well, we are the world champs. India's women's ice hockey team, yes, ice hockey, won a historic bronze at the Asia Cup. We've taken on the people who are native ice hockey players and we have beaten many of them, winning the bronze medal. Point number 94 on your screens, our athletes won an unprecedented, record-breaking 20 medals at the World Boxing Cup finals. Proud of the women there on your screens who've done the country proud. And speaking of the women there on your screens, many of whom are known for the sporting achievements, well, in this 101 milestones achieved by India in 2025, what we call the Bharat Progress Report here on Newsx, our category up next is women. And that brings us to point number 95. 17 women cadets graduated for the first time from the National Defence Academy. Milestone achievement. Point number 96. This is Sub-Lieutenant Astha Punya. She became the Indian Navy's first maritime fighter pilot. First ever. So when we say milestone, setting the trend, Navy woman fighter pilot for the first time. First time graduations from the National Defence Academy, women. Well, point number 97 brings us to women in industry, Startup India. Now, in the 75,000 of the 2 lakh odd startups in this country that were registered, 75,000 of them had at least one woman as a director of the company. Game changer in terms of women ownership of businesses, not just women working in the various sectors of India. Now, here's another specific one, point number 98, Sheetal Devi. She became the world para archery champion. Well done, Sheetal. Brought pride to the country and we are proud of you. And that brings us to point number 99 of 101. We're just 2 away in our category on women. That wraps up our listicle of the Bharat Progress Report 2025. 1.48 crore women became Lakpati Didis, which means they are earning at least 1 lakh rupees themselves in their own names by doing small businesses, running drones, running small services. That is the empowerment of 1.5 crore women who in many cases are now primary breadwinners in their house, or at least have an income of their own. Milestone achievements can only go up from here. And that brings us to point number 100 of the auspicious 101. Okay. The union budget, ladies and gentlemen, in 2025 allocated 4.49 lakh crores to women schemes, so that we migrate from women development to women-led development backed by the Union of India's consolidated fund. And point number 101 relates to Divya Deshmukh. She became the Women's World Cup champion, FIDE Women's World Cup champion. Divya, we are proud of you and we are proud of all the achievements that India has done. Lots of things to be done in a country of this scale, of this size. But are we cracking on? Is there something that is taking us in the right direction? Well, the Bharat Progress Report is supposed to be your quick reference check, and we hope we have done that job by giving you some insights on the road to Viksit Bharat 2047. What did we achieve in 2025? That was 101 points. You were watching the Bharat Progress Report on Newsx. I am Rishabh Gulati. Thanks for watching.